Before we begin today, please note that the views, opinions, allegations, and factual assertions expressed by guests on this podcast are their own and do not necessarily reflect the views of Light Pollution News or its hosts. We contacted Musco Lighting for comment regarding matters discussed in this episode. As of the publication date of this recording, we have not received a response. Should that change, I'll bring it to your attention in a future episode, and it will be marked on the web page for this episode. Light Pollution News, June 2026. Let bats be themselves. Hey there, this episode, I welcome three great guests. Author and naturalist Charles Hood from the Soft Lights Foundation. I welcome back Mark Baker. And out and about starting his own thing now with Nightlight Consulting, I welcome back Ken Walczak. This episode, we talk bridges, some good, some maybe not so good, and headlights. Have we been down this road before? Maybe. You'll have to listen to find out. Oh, and we have some ecology news this month. It's a bit bat-laden, so enjoy. All this, much more, coming to you this episode of Light Pollution News. Welcome to Light Pollution News. I'm your host, Bill McGeaney. Each month, Light Pollution News talks about the wide range of this very topic of light pollution that doesn't just include not being able to see the stars, but so many aspects to this. So before we jump in today, I want to thank those of you who support the show. I want to include this in the last set of shows pre-rolls, but I swapped the files. They didn't get in it. So as you guys know, we have a general mailing list. The supporters receive an upgraded mailer each month that includes over 150 articles they can pull it each month. So you have a listing with all the links and all the how to find those articles and everything. And then you also receive an invite to the next month's recording if you want to sit in as an audience member. And then also a couple months back, I included the 2025 annual financial breakdown. If you're curious to what the show's finances looked like in 2025, you the supporter, check out that email. If you didn't open the email, it will be in there. So thank you to you guys because we are 100% listener supported. Every little bit helps us grow, also helps us expand our reach, and you can see where we spent our money in 2025. So thank you, supporters. If you like what we're doing, if you like the show, if you're interested in helping us keep the show going, it is a lot of work. You know, I do question sometimes when I'm chasing down a guest, it's a lot of work to really keep it going. And if you simply want to help out, just click the support the show link in the show notes over on our website at lightpollutionnews.com. Just go over there and there'll be a support the show link or in today's show notes on whatever podcast player you're listening to. So let's get into it. I'm really excited to have a slate of guests with me for this June. First up, two familiar voices with us today, and I'm always a fan of having return guests. It's always fun to have you guys back on. I feel like return guests, you guys kind of know the flow, so you're a little less timid, a little more comfortable with how everything runs. So it's always nice to have you guys. I want to welcome back to the show one of my favorite guests, a guest from our very first season back in 2023, Ken Walczak, who I think I previously pronounced, I think that first episode, Ken, it was Ken Walczak. So, something like that.
Your Polish heritage is showing.
Yeah, right. So, Ken, you're out there in Chicago. You used to do a lot of cool remote sensing work, and I know you're a board member for Dark Sky International. You co-lead the designation of the world's largest urban night sky place, which is Palos Preserves over in Chicago, and you're also founder. You just started up Nightlight Consulting LLC. Tell me a little bit about Nightlight Consulting LLC, and are you still doing some of the remote sensing work? Is that still part of this new gig?
Yeah. I'm continuing the light pollution research work. You know, I was at the Adler Planetarium for 16 years, and now I'm moving on and trying some new things. You know, joining John Barentine in the world of Nightlight Consulting. We'll see if we can struggle together. So yeah, Nightlight Consulting is, you know, just my way of offering professional services for, you know, individuals with light trespass issues, municipalities looking to maybe improve their lighting, do lighting ordinances. You know, if you want to pursue a dark sky designation, or if you're a business interested in doing the right thing, protecting the night, I'm here to help.
Again, it cracks me up when you said that, because I remember, hopefully you have a little better setup for your location for the physical spot. I know John, when you look up John's location, it says it looks like a dollar store or something, or some kind of a discount shop. You're like, oh, that's pretty interesting. You were at the Adler, and now you're doing some Nightlight Consulting. And I know you had some really cool research in remote sensing. So was there any movement on some of that before you left the Adler, or do you still have a physical hand in any of that stuff?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I'm still working with the partners I have there. And we're working on a paper that hopefully we'll submit for publication in the fall, where there are results from what we presented at the last Allen conference, Artificial Light at Night conference in Ireland in the fall, where we were looking at residential lighting and how sociodemographic factors seem to correlate to the excessive use of light at night in residential properties. And one of the really interesting things that came out of that work was that we found that tree canopy cover has a we're looking into it right now, a very strong effect on the amount of observed light from a satellite. And why that's really important is, number one, if you're observing only in wintertime, or let's say only in summertime where there's a lot of deciduous trees, you're going to be missing a lot of the light. But the other interesting factor about this research about looking at how much a tree canopy can change what's observed from above is that we could, if we know what lights are there, and the only thing that changes is a tree canopy, we could literally calculate how much energy these trees are absorbing. And so that way we can even use, which recent research has shown, that light is a stronger trigger to tree phenology, like when they bud and when they lose their leaves, than even temperature. So we're looking into, can we actually quantify how much light exposure your trees are having from space?
Well, yeah, there's last month I had Barrington Russell on, who built this great website. And on it, you can actually plot out the change in the night sky over even individual months based on satellite data. And obviously there's some factors in there like, transparency, cloud cover, and stuff like that. But stuff like that is really interesting, whereby you're actually looking at the energy that tree is absorbing. That's an interesting bullet point too. I'm curious to see that when it comes out. Well, next up, it's not just a Ken show. I also have Mark Baker with us. And Mark, you're the founder of Soft Lights Foundation. You used to be the co-host of Restoring Darkness. I see that went away. Just pulled the plug. You guys just say, you know what, hey, we had a good run. We talked to a lot of great people, and now we want to move on and do some more fun things.
Oh, it wasn't quite like that. Things happen. People have disagreements. I will tell you that the disagreement was not between Michael Colligan and myself. So we were getting along fine. I enjoyed working with Michael. He was doing great work. Our podcast was increasing in listenership, so everything was going along great. They had a disagreement, the sponsors, not really sponsors. Anyway, so he just decided that it was time to move on, like you said. So we ended the show. We had a, kind of final goodbye, and now he sells light bulbs. He's gone back to his original business. And so that's just changed the way I do business here. I used to get a lot of interviews because of that show, I think. People would contact me frequently, and then it just stopped immediately as soon as we stopped the Restoring Darkness podcast. It's still out there as a website, restoringdarkness.com. You can still go there and look at the old shows, but we're not producing anything new. And as far as Michael and I still stay in touch, he's just focusing on his business now.
Wow. Well, tell me a little bit about Soft Lights Foundation. How you founded this 3 years ago?
Oh, it's probably been 5 years. So first it was just involvement with the Facebook group, and then it became a website, softlights.org. And then I was told that if I wanted to really have influence with people, I needed to be a 501c3. So that was 4 or 5 years ago. So now we're a nonprofit. And we recently did some redesign on our website. So now we have a cool logo. That helps because we can put that on letterhead. It's got colorful. Spent a lot of time trying to decide what it should look like. And then importantly, I do a lot of pro se legal work. I cannot represent the Soft Lights Foundation. I'm not a lawyer. So I do this work, but it's one of the ways that we're trying to get change. And so I've just learned the law on my own, but I've created a website called moonlightadvocacy.org, which is my own personal website. And I don't totally keep it up to date, but it's got a lot of my personal legal battles. So Soft Lights Foundation now has become more of a advocacy organization to help cities understand. We have a proposed lighting ordinance document that they can download and that's scientifically based, and other information. We try to keep it scientifically based. So it's not, Soft Light Foundation is not as aggressive, but I personally am still aggressive with my lawsuits.
All right. Well, we'll get into one of those in a little bit. So let me get to my third guest here, which I'm really glad to have. This is someone who I've tried to reach out to, and stuff happens, and it just takes a little bit of time to connect with folks. And I'm very thankful that you're able to join us today, Charles. I'd like to welcome Charles Hood to the show, and let me bring you, listener, up to speed. Some of you guys may know the name, some of you guys may not. Charles, you have 23 books under your belt, including 4 book reviews, nonfiction book of the year, A Salad Only the Devil Would Eat, and the California Association of Independent Booksellers nonfiction book of the year, Wild LA. You have studied with Nobel Prize winning author Louise Gluck while pursuing an MFA in poetry over at UC Irvine. But more importantly, and the thing that caught my eye, was this book, Nature at Night, which is a collection of prose with some stunning nature photography. Wrote this book, Nocturnalia, which preempted this more recent book, which I think many folks may know the name. What brings you back to this topic of night, and what changed between writing both of those books? Welcome to the show, by the way.
Thank you. It's a great honor to be here and to be with such a distinguished panel. One of my little narrative lines is that people have been trained by our culture to be afraid of the dark. Through advertising, you have to deadbolt, and people are out there to get you, and you got to have high beams on your car and all that kind of thing. But we extrapolate from that, and often I think people are afraid of things that are dark by themselves. It might be a racial group. It might be political ideology. It could be the animals that you associate with darkness, like bats, even though, of course, bats can come out during the day, too, for that matter. But somehow being afraid of the darkness makes us afraid of other aspects of our human experience. And that's just wrong morally, ethically. It's wrong because you don't have any fun. It's wrong because you're afraid to go hiking. And so I thought if I could use the bully pulpit of some books, maybe I could find a way to educate people and let them enjoy some of the things that I enjoy about the nighttime.
I contacted you. I think we first connected. Were you in Ecuador? Were you hiking on top? Were you climbing some mountain somewhere?
Oh, I might have been. I'm recently retired-ish. And so I'm doing a lot of world travel that got delayed by my stupid job, because I had a stupid job and a stupid family and a stupid life. And then suddenly my life is my own, more or less, broadly speaking, until the money runs out. So I'm doing this big blitz. For some of your listeners know that bird watchers keep lists of all the birds they've seen. What many of your listeners may not appreciate is that there is a subset of mammal twitchers, mammal watchers, mammal counters, mammal listers, and I just decided I was going to get to 1,000 on that list. Put me among like 5 people or some 5 idiots and me, kind of the idea. And so that gave me kind of the impetus to go to Madagascar and Borneo and all these places that had been on the list. And so, yes, I'm happy to be with you. I'm here now. I just booked a flight to Lisbon right before airtime here.
Well, that sounds like you're living the life. I'm very jealous. I think everyone here is pretty jealous of that. That's great. Well, the book that you wrote, which you mentioned, you want to kind of share that feeling, that sense of enjoying, appreciating the night, or creatures at least of the night. This kind of a thing right now. I feel like there's a number of books out there that are kind of pushing this awareness, this kind of, I want to call it like I don't want to call it a vibe, but it's something that kind of is an awareness style of opening up people's eyes to, hey, maybe it's not that bad. Maybe you're not going to get eaten if you step outside at night. Do you think that this is making a connection?
I know from doing public events that it makes a connection when I talk to people. And I know that from the emails I get, people have questions and follow up. And I know from the mammal watching side of things, more and more people are going out to study animals at night. What influence it has on the larger culture, all of us on this panel could sort of shrug and say, we hope it's having some benefit, even though we also could look at the world around us and go, oh, shoot, dang, not enough of influence anyway. Maybe tomorrow. Our influence will be tomorrow.
There's one spot that's having influence, and it's having influence on some bridge design. Let me jump right into it here. Over in Helsinki, there's the Kruunuvori Bridge. I'm doing my best, anyone over there, if they're trying to listen. The bridge debuted, and it was as the longest and tallest bridge in Finland, coming in at 3/4 of a mile in length and 443 feet tall, and that's 135 meters. The bridge isn't designed for drivers. Instead, it's actually a rail bridge designed with pedestrian cycling pathways on it. It's a very strange thing, living over here in North America and thinking that you have designs for other than cars. The bridge was specifically designed to also minimize light pollution. The bridge utilizes targeted shielded fixtures. It has a footpath that is completely lit, but that light isn't really aimed upward or outward. It's not aimed to the water. The fixtures themselves keep the pathway lit, a minimized amount of glare that hits users. It doesn't hit the nearby residents and it doesn't hit the ship. So a minimal amount hits the ships. So if that wasn't enough, the bridge does have decorative lighting. And if through the pictures, you can clearly see that the light itself, by and large, remains on the bridge. It's not being extended out and it's shimmering for, many yards or many hundreds of feet outward. The bridge lighting is also able to adjust to the time of night and to the atmospheric conditions for optimal brightness, not just carelessly or excessively brightening the damn bridge. This bridge was designed by two companies, WSP and Knight Architects. What do you guys feel about this? This is something I know, Ken, last time you were on, we had a bridge conversation. Mark, we're always seem to have bridge conversations when I see you. Same bridge, by the way, but let's continue. Yeah. So what do you guys think about this?
Can Finland invade North America and take us over and become our government?
Really? Light our bridges
They
for
beat
us.
the Russians in World War II. Why can't they just come help us out? A smart bridge. It's not that hard, y'all. Let's make a smart bridge for smart people.
Oh, man.
Let's just do it.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, that's what I liked about it. I mean, you're right. They did obviously think about the effect it was having at night. And it's like you said, it's pedestrian and tram bridge, so there's not cars which have headlights anyway. I don't know why. Yeah. But yeah, and from the shots I saw at night, I mean, it actually looks like good, thoughtful design that achieves its purpose. So what more do you need? I think it's a good example.
In Los Angeles, over the LA River, there's a new bridge, and the birdwatchers call it the bird killing bridge. Just the way they've done the wires and the lights, they've maximized the penalty to migrating nocturnal birds moving down the river corridor. You're just like utterly oblivious to the other nature outside of the design office.
Yeah. That might be a judicious way of saying it.
So here's something about Helsinki, where I was just a few years ago on my way to go see flying squirrels in Estonia. There was a unisex clothing shop in downtown Helsinki where the clothing was for a man, woman, or other, or them, or they, whoever. It was not as gendered as any store I've ever seen in North America. And the idea that such a shop could exist and survive financially is sort of shocking to the North American experience.
And thrive, right? It's thriving, I assume. Yeah. Wow. Hold my tongue on that one. There are many things we don't have to worry about here in the States, that being one of them, Charles. And how about this? The forward thinking that we were just talking about for that bridge. So there's this group, and Mark, let's go jump into it right now. Illuminate, led by founder Ben Davis, who we've talked about previously on the show. Davis did something that, I'm always personally jealous of, that is he raised $11 million in private donations, including some big one-time drops, which was like $1 million a piece, and a lot of small, $2, $5, $1 donations from folks. All of this was to relight the Bay Bridge connecting San Francisco to Oakland, California. For those of you not familiar with San Francisco, this is not the Golden Gate Bridge, to which has central tower masts that are lit, not the individual cables. The Bay Bridge would have cables that are lit. Mark, before I let you run wild on this one, let me go through the backstory here. So roughly 15 years ago, Davis got the idea to pitch this decorative bridge lighting to California's Department of Transportation. At that time, Davis ran a PR firm, World's Pictures Ideas, that the Department of Transportation had actually contracted with. Somehow, he connected with artist Leo Villarreal. Villarreal ended up designing the initial decorative lighting for the bridge, and that debuted about a decade ago. The decorative lighting then and now really involved a simple idea, and that was to light the suspension cables from the road to the horizontal holding cable at the top of the bridge. I don't know technically what that is called, but it's, if you can picture it, you have a big cable on top. It's holding all the other cables. All those individual cables are lit. That became the iconic look for the Bay Bridge. Fast forward to 2023, the bridge lights essentially ran their course given the weather in San Fran and weren't really working. Now, after raising the needed dough, Davis again contracted Villarreal In March, half of the anticipated 50,000 LEDs were installed and activated on the Bay Bridge. The new replacement count is double that of the original design. I want to note the main player here because the name will lift an eyebrow, maybe two. The key partner for Villarreal's re-envisioning of the Bay Bridge involved Musco Lighting, the same provider that's endorsed by Dark Sky International for sports fields lighting, and also the provider who debuted responsible lighting at the U.S. Open. And we previously talked about how Musco is going to be involved in the golf course over there in Iowa. Over on Musco's page featuring the Bay Bridge relighting design, rest assured there's absolutely no mention of responsible lighting, ecology, and it goes without saying light trespass or light pollution. Per Ben Davis, the intent of the new lighting is so people can see the bridge not just from San Francisco and the North Bay, but as a matter of aesthetic equity to communities all around the Bay. Of course, some of you know that the story didn't end there. Mark, you raised up your hand and was like, hey, wait a second. Hold on. I get the fact you want to bring joy to all of us here and living in this community. This sounds like you're asking to essentially upsize the original ecologically careless bridge lighting. You had allies jump on board, including the Golden Gate Bird Alliance, which also requested timers and dimmers for new lights, both of which I found nothing indicating that Musco or Davis had ever responded to, but maybe they did. UVA Soft Lights took a trio of groups, the Bay Area Toll Authority, Metropolitan Transportation Commission, and the California Department of Transportation to court, citing a failure to provide mandatory environmental review. You called in the services of Robert Hamilton at Hamilton Biological. Dr. Travis Longcore stepped in to independently review the report and found Hamilton's work to be accurate and endorsed the legal conclusion that the environmental review bypass was indefensible. Mark, why don't you walk us through what exactly happened here? You went to court. Do I have this timeline? Are these facts the correct facts here?
Yeah, it's pretty extensive. You've uncovered quite a bit, and it's fascinating. You were correct about Musco lighting. So this is a pure light pollution project. It's not utility lighting. It's not lighting to see where we're going, like the Helsinki Bridge that you mentioned. And so it's an idea from Ben Davis to what he calls art, grand, large-scale art. This grand relighting ceremony was held on March 20th, 2026. And as you mentioned, only half the lights were turned on. It's kind of bizarre, if you think about it, to have a grand relighting ceremony when only half the lights. So at this grand relighting ceremony, the mayor of San Francisco, Daniel Lurie, he was there. State Senator Scott Wiener, he was there. Ben Davis was there. A crowd of people was there. And there was a supporter of the Soft Lights Foundation who had made his own custom sign, and he got interviewed, and he was there as a protester, which is just the greatest thing. He did that all on his own. The fact that these government officials showed up for a light pollution ceremony when we have the Soft Lights Foundation, and really I kind of do, because of all the legal work, I'm doing this on my. So the way it rolled out was that back in 2012, Mr. Davis had this idea, as you stated, for the smaller scale version of this project for a celebration. So he happened to know people within the government. So he went to the Bay Area Toll Authority, back then the deputy director, Andrew Premier. They already knew that they couldn't get this project through in a standard process. So in California, it's called the California Environmental Quality Act. I knew it existed, but I didn't know how it worked until I got into the legal aspects of it. You have to do an analysis. If you're going to do, it's 1.8 miles wide. So if you're going to do a big light pollution project, you have to go through an environmental analysis and create an environmental impact report, and and have public comments so everybody can kind of see what's going on. Caltrans, which is the owner of the bridge, the state agency, also has a whole number of requirements for any kind of a project that's considered art, which is this is considered art. So first of all, you have to get a local public agency sponsor. That means like the city of San Francisco or Oakland. And they did that for the first project, sort of. But another one is that the project must be publicly funded. That's a requirement. This project was entirely privately funded. So it should have stopped there. So they submitted in January 13th, 2012, a letter to Caltrans requesting that Caltrans, quote, delegate lead agency authority to BATA for this project. On January 24th, 2012, the District 4 director at that time responded, yes, we understand that this project is not publicly funded, it's privately funded, and it doesn't have it was in the letter, kind of saying, yes, we know that it doesn't meet our requirements, so therefore we're going to, quote, delegate this lead agency authority to BATA. Just recently, I don't know, some months ago, I discovered that's unlawful. You're not allowed to delegate lead agency authority under California's CEQA law. It's not permitted. It's by statute. Who is the lead agency? It's the agency that's owns the bridge. It's the agency that's carrying out the construction. It's the agency that's issuing the permits. It's Caltrans. There's no doubt about it. So that was the first step, and that was the first version of the project back in 2012. When they then wanted to do this third is the third iteration. The third iteration for Bay Lights 360. Now they wanted to double the lights, but the other half face outward to the north.
I want to ask you on that. Can you not see the lights from the other side?
Well, I don't know because I'm so averse to blue rich light. I just don't go there. But what I've seen in the photos, so what his vision was to have, it's plenty bright. It's insane, actually, how bright it is. So he wanted lights to shine inward so that you could see it from the south side. But the inward facing lights would go right into the driver's eyes. That was his plan. And he promoted it as equity. Oh, we want everybody in the Bay to be able to see these lights. I don't know. I've never actually experienced it, so I don't know what you see from the other side.
Mark, have you driven over the bridge now?
I used to. Lights? I used to, right? Not since the new lights. No, my family was here in March from Australia. And they said, oh, we're going to go drive over San Francisco. And I said, I don't think I can go. You're going to be out there at night. I don't think I could get back. It chokes me up. It's so harmful to me, this blue light at night. I've been screaming. It's come out for years, right? So I've been in screaming matches and stuff when I get hit by this light. So I just kind of that's really bad. I've been stuck out in Sacramento at night a couple of times, and it's almost impossible to get home. So something like the bridge is I'm not going to subject myself to that. It's too dangerous.
So can I pause you real fast now? You mentioned something. The lights themselves are facing inward into the road. The lights, the cable lighting, the decorative lighting that Musco is putting in is going into the road. I guess I'm trying to understand what the spray is on where that light surface area is hitting. Is it going out into the water? Is it going up over the bridge?
Oh, yeah. They have all these suspension cables. So I don't know exact height, something like from 5 to 200 feet, right? Because the bridge, they go up taller and shorter. So the original lights were placed on the outward facing side of these cables, and they go right out into the bay. So the bay is inundated, blue rich light pollution. And so then the Bay Lights 360 was, let's string out another 24,000 on the inside of the cables so that somebody from the southern side could also see the light. Well, they don't have really specifics. I don't know what they had in mind. They have an animation, but you can see the animation shows a car driving on the bridge, and there would be it would be like a strobe effect because every cable has these lights. So people with epilepsy and autism and stuff would be PTSD. They would be subject to possible seizures because it would feel like a strobe as they drove by. What happened was legally and regulatory wise is that the Federal Highway Administration owns the Interstate 80 road that goes across. Okay. So they have an involvement. It's a shared responsibility with Caltrans, the state agency. Well, on October 15th, 2024, the Federal Highway Administration issued a half permit, which said, okay, we'll let you turn on those outward facing lights, but we're really concerned about those inward facing lights. You're going to need to do a safety study. You're going to need to show to us that those things are safe. The California Highway Patrol also chimed in and they said, there's everything we know about this is that this is dangerous. But this didn't really stop anybody from from doing their thing. Everybody all these government officials that were involved in this continued to like sign papers and move the project along. It didn't seem to faze them, except when they got to this grand relighting ceremony, they didn't turn on the lights because they didn't have permission.
So that's why we're waiting for the rest of the lights to come on.
Yeah. So
Okay,
in my
I gotcha.
lawsuits now, this has become a major issue because when you do environmental review, you need to do the whole of the project. You're not allowed to piecemeal projects. This is how, government agencies get away with stuff. They break it into smaller parts. Oh, this is just a little thing here, and this is a little thing, but the cumulative effect is a big thing, right? Mm-hmm. So under California Environmental Quality Act, you got to do the whole of the action. There's another part now, federal. It's called the National Environmental Policy Act, NEPA. Under NEPA, same thing. You got to look at the whole of the action. So now that the Federal Highway Administration came in and they said, well, there you got to do the safety study. It ended up being segmented, right? Exactly what is not permitted. You needed to assess the whole project, and instead they built they built the whole thing. It's all there. And then they just didn't flip the switch for the inward facing lights because they can't. So I have submitted requests to Caltrans and Federal Highway Administration saying, what's the status? What are you going to do at this point, right? I mean, you're just going to leave them sitting there? Now, here's something else that's super interesting. I can tell you that there's an agency that's independent. It's called the Caltrans Inspector General. This is not Caltrans. It's an oversight agency. I've been writing to them for quite a while, several years. They finally contacted me a couple months ago. Hey, you've been contacting us about this Bay Bridge. I said, yeah. I said, there's a lot of stuff that's going on there. So they told me that they cannot investigate the project as being fraudulent, but they can investigate employee misconduct. I said, there's a ton of that's occurred. So the biggest example, so there's an application that had to be made to Caltrans, what's called an encroachment permit. They needed permission to do these lights. It was supposed to be filled out and signed by a representative of the Bay Area Toll Authority. Instead, I got the document. It's signed by Ben Davis as an authorized agent of BATA. That's a problem.
Mark, this project itself, a lot of people seem to be enthused about it. A lot of people seem to be, you go social media, you go different places, people seem to be enthused about having a bridge lit. What's so bad about people just being able to take pride in their community?
Well, that's exactly what they could do. That would be when the public got to put their voice in this project that's now affecting millions of Bay Area residents. Not a single public comment was received. They skipped that process. This is purely Ben Davis. He's magical that he was able to convince all these officials. As you mentioned, they were big donors, $1 million at a time. You got to think that there's some kind of influence from these rich people that allowed this to occur. So when they do transportation art for Caltrans, it's a public process. The public comes in, they say, yeah, we like that. We want that. And then you get a resolution and the local public agency approves it and said, yeah, everybody wants this. This is pretty exciting. Let's do that. In this case, not a single member of the public was given an opportunity to say if they wanted that light pollution. And so now people contact me who know about it or find out about it and say, Mark, I hate that thing, right? It's so bright. I got squinting now, and it's, affecting the entire bay, the ecosystem, everything. And yes, there are some people that, oh, that's really exciting. It's high tech and it's really neat because it's animated, right? It's moving, it's flowing and stuff like that. Okay. But that's not really the point. The point was that the public was not given an opportunity to say whether they wanted this project or not.
Leo Villarreal's website has a piece for something he did over in London on a London river lighting, which he strongly talks about reducing his impact on ecology, trying to reduce the amount of light pollution that actually is going to be part of a illuminated river installation. The old river installation, I believe, was pretty abrasive when it comes to light, and this one is a little more tactful. And there's a whole page where it's all detailed, and I presume that's in part because the UK has some kind of policy or some kind of environmental standard that he had to fit to, or that they were asking him to design to. And then we have Musco, who seems to have a pretty good reputation with reducing stray light and being cognizant about to use lighting to minimize impacts on both people and ecology. Why do you think that in this case, is there no positive scenario here? Is there no positive scenario where these two actors have created something that both looks vibrant and good and actually reduces its impact? It doesn't have a full-on impact that you would expect from a bridge lighting. Like here, for instance, we have the Ben Franklin, which is just pillars of, depending on the day, green colored lights up into the sky, right?
Yeah, let's talk about it. It's important for light pollution. So these are art. These are purely aesthetic installations. There's no function to these things. Yeah, and they may look beautiful, but we got to consider the impact on the fish, on the birds, on the insects, on humans. Light pollution is an environmental carcinogen. You wouldn't do that, right? Everything we see on TV is about like cancer risk. So if light pollution is an environmental carcinogen, this should be strictly prohibited. The natural world doesn't have any of these artificial lights. It's only in the last 150 years that we've introduced electric light, and now we're out of control with what we're doing with it. Maybe you could do it for a special occasion, maybe 4th of July, Independence Day in America, you could do it. Maybe, some other, once or twice. But to leave it on continuously all night, it's just a gross negligence to do that kind of thing. And so Leo Villarreal is in the Bay Lights 360 situation. We have a very disturbing situation with Dark Sky International, Musco Lighting, and this project, because I've seen the collaboration between Dark Sky International and Musco, and the claims that Musco, and they've known each other personally, the top people there, for a couple of decades. So, but to claim that, we do responsible lighting, like on Sports Field, that we made is better, and Dark Sky has promoted this in the past year, that they're improving Sports Field lighting, but then to have no, just to allow this 48,000 LED light pollution project, which is totally, it's not an approved project. It didn't go through any environmental review. And for Dark Sky to simply say, shrug their shoulders and say, that's fine. I personally would never want to do, right? If that's my thing and I want to protect dark skies, I would just cancel my relationship with Musco. And, it's just a disaster, the Bay Lights 360 thing. And I think it speaks negatively to Dark Sky International.
Okay, well, since we're here on, lighting up areas that probably don't need lighting, I don't know if you guys caught this down in Australia by Kerry Cola. It's considered the largest outdoor lighting installation ever undertaken. The exhibit was called Lighting the Sound. It took place over 3 weekends in March. Area specifically lit the hills of Tornadurp National Park and Vancouver Peninsula around Albany, and I don't know what province that is. Apologize. The official purpose was to honor the cultural heritage of the region, to which the First Nations peoples called the Manong, as they were in fact co-designers of this project and helped guide it along a little bit. So they installed 750 LED lights over 12 kilometers with 15 kind of laser mambas, which are, think of super dense spotlights that shot up across the land into the sky in different areas. Color selection had to pass muster with the Australian National Light Pollution Guidelines for Wildlife, to which they apparently did, despite the fact that they use green as one of the major colors. The exhibit notably remained lit and active for only a few hours each evening, not, as the aforementioned Bay Bridge, for eternity, probably during the daytime as well there. So that's a pretty interesting one. Just a little more on that topic there.
I was going to mention that the response to that project was oof. And I'm glad it only took place for 9 nights. And, it's funny, they had a promo video for the installation. And in the promo video, they had a beautiful sky, night sky with stars on it. That obviously wasn't taken while the installation was going on. And they also showed there was a brief clip of birds migrating through a very, very light polluted, glary situation. And they were all lit up, and they even had little shocked expressions on their faces, I think. I come from an art background as well. So, not adverse to doing creative works, and even with light or even with night, I would point anybody toward James Turrell's work. I mean, that's a beautiful example of using light as a piece of art. But in this case, I feel like it's really more spectacle than meaning. The thing I would say is that the night is like an innocent canvas, it doesn't know what's going to hit it. And so you can make a big impression, especially with modern technology, with the lights we have now can generate so many lumens and so much energy that you're like, okay, I can take the night, just alter it. A little skeptical about for example, the involvement of the Menang in this. Seems like they were just consultants in a sense, like they agreed, and I don't know if there was active work on it, so don't quote me on that. But I mean, there's a lot of examples of that. I mean, Yoko Ono's Imagine Peace Tower in Iceland is a good example of that. Giant beam of light going up into the sky. Certain nights, obviously Tribute in Light in New York City, the Symphony of Lights in Hong Kong. I don't know if anybody's ever seen.
Is that the laser show?
Yep, the entire.
Yeah, I've seen that. Yep, I've seen that a couple of
laser
times.
And huge illuminated facades and everything else. It just feels like if you're an artist, you have to ask the question: just because we can, should we? And
well, the answer is yes, Ken. Yes. It's always yes.
We should? You're saying? We can. That's the problem. So that would be my sort of little stand on the whole art as light in night kind of thing.
You mentioned this. I've seen this so many times with the brochures. They have these light installations, and then in the brochure, it's all these stars. Well, hardly anybody can see these stars anymore, right? Where'd you get that picture? And if you put light on top of it, there won't be any stars. But the marketing materials, it always seems to be that way. Enjoy the night with our artificial light show. It's so weird.
Yeah, they also do concerts under the stars here, which cracks me up because what do you see, like 2, maybe? Maybe you get the stars.
But you're under them, you just can't see them.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, let's shift gears here a little bit. We have a bunch of ecology. I don't know how much of this I'm going to get to, but there is this. I want to start off this guy here. I came across a chapter out of the edited volume of Nocturnal Animals, Adapted or Inherited Plasticity. It looks at some of the less than appreciated architects of our nighttime environments: termites, ants, and honeybees. So termites don't use light, as many of you guys probably know. Instead, they navigate their world through chemical pheromones and vibration. The activity reinforces the most efficient paths for movement through positive pheromone feedback loops. There's also vibration alarm system set in place for these guys where they actually headbutt the tunnel walls to create a drumming sound, so that way they know if there's a problem in their nest. They live their whole life without need for light or much detailed vision. And then we have ants, on the other hand. These guys use eyes, but have an important feature. Many nocturnal ant species have enlarged eye structures that capture greater amounts of dim light. And as we saw last month, some can even navigate using polarized moonlight, starlight, or even polarized light from the Milky Way itself, essentially using this light as a celestial compass. Visual system works in tandem with chemical trail senses, and this enables the ants to operate across a wide range of lighting conditions and environments rather than being locked into just a single vision like termites are. And then we have our fan favorite, one of my favorites, the honeybees. Actually, bees in general, I love bees. These guys actually split the clock. Daytime involves foraging with polarized light for navigation, and nighttime is spent in the hive, which sits in permanent darkness. Worker bees process nectar, build comb, and care for larvae, guided entirely by touch, temperature sensitivity, and then some chemical signals as well. There's actually some species out there that evolved to work at twilight using low light vision to access night blooming flowers. Charles, I equally as fascinated, but not as much with mammals, although I'm not a mammal hater. Right now, my wife's got me into birding, so we just did a birding trip where we saw 83 species out in Ohio, which is pretty crazy. And it's kind of like a work setup whereby she makes food. I have to wake up like 5:30. We go out the door, get back home by 7, and then do it again. And I come back home, and I have to do that for real world. So
that's your vacation?
Yeah, that was my vacation.
A lot of work. Yeah.
I just get drug along for the ride. It's fun. It's fun to see all these interesting little species. And when you put together nature at night, was there any detail or tidbit that like really stuck out in your mind that you just thought, man, this is really fascinating?
I love the story about the sharks eating the submarines. And many of your listeners know it, but some of you don't. So real quick, 1970s, 1980s, American nuclear submarines are coming back to port with all these holes chewed out of their neoprene housings that covered the sonar array. And they're trying to figure out what's going on here. And super short version for us all, phytoplankton are up at the surface getting sunlight. They're feeding during the day. Things want to eat them, but they're going to come up at night because they don't want to be eaten themselves. So zooplankton migrate vertically, and then things want to eat those, so they're migrating vertically. And there's, so everything's down there in the dark during the day and then coming up to feed at the surface during the night. This big trillions and trillions of organisms are moving up and down like elevators, like workers at a mine on a ship. And one of the animals that's predating things as they go on past are called cookie cutter sharks. And they're like a little can opener mouth, like a leech with like a 1.5 foot long leech with this great little buzzsaw mouth. And it, like a dolphin's going by, and it'll come over and do a little circular takeout, a little divot out of the side of the animal passing by, good little mouthful of flesh, and it peels off. The cookie cutter shark peels away like an airplane leaving a dogfight before the larger animal can react, and it's got its little mouthful of flesh there, and it goes, and it leaves, usually it's not fatal, but it leaves a little scar. So during the day, we can see this if we're dolphin watching. You can see the sides of the whales of the dolphins with these little circular scars, but they're taken out by these cookie cutters. Well, nobody knew the cookie cutter sharks were down there in the dark, but they were seeing submarines go by the size of a whale. They've got this neoprene on them, kind of like whale blubber. So they would do a little ram on the submarine, take out a divot of neoprene, and the submarines are coming back to port all chewed up. Like, what the heck is going on here, y'all? And they finally figured it out that, there's actually lots of cookie cutter sharks. It's a pretty successful genus.
Were they attracted to something in a material? Was it just
might have been the electrical current? No one has interviewed them successfully. Hello, cookie cutter. Tell us about your motivations here. Are you a Soviet cookie cutter shark? Do you hate the Americans, or do you bite universally? But the idea that the ocean every day, every ocean in the world, day and night, has got this turnover of organisms rising up and coming down. And when we go out whale watching, if you've done that in Monterey, for example, in California, we see the dolphins frolicking around. Well, they're frolicking around because some of them are actually nocturnal squid eaters. So they're frolicking because they're full. They can socialize and mate and display because they're not hunting, because they've been hunting all night.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. That's another tidbit that most people probably don't even realize.
And it was fun to illustrate. This is from the book Nature at Night from Timber Press. And
I hope to have the book soon. Like I mentioned in the beginning, before we came on air, I ordered this book 3 weeks ago, and it keeps being delayed. Everything I order keeps being delayed. I don't know if that's a sign on me. I don't know what's going on.
The world doesn't like you. That's how
probably
you know,
it, Charles. That's exactly what's going on.
If you don't get it in a week, I'll send you an illicit e-version. I'm not supposed to have e-copies, but I do. Magically, there's some in my computer, so I can send you a free one as an electronic file, and don't tell my editor.
I won't tell anyone. I'll let you know. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, if it doesn't show up.
Well, there's a piece from Scientific Reports this month. A team looked at how artificial light and ultrasonic noise pollution affected foraging behavior of wild Dauberton's bats at a river site in Odense, Denmark. The study conducted over 30 nights. They used 9 acoustic recorders deployed at predetermined distance intervals from a designated light or noise source. Researchers measured bat echolocation calls per minute as a proxy for foraging activity. Light was found to reduce bat activity by 43% at the source and further reduce activity by 23% as far as 20 meters away, where light levels were estimated to drop below 1 lux. On the noise front, the team utilized ultrasonic noise, which produced a similar 49% reduction at the source, but this dissipated much more quickly, becoming undetectable beyond roughly 10 meters away. Bats recovered within 1 minute after the light was turned off, while noise required an additional 2.4 minutes of recovery time. One note is that the light intensity was not directly measured in the field, but rather extrapolated from the darkroom calibrations that they did.
Well, one thing to remind our listeners is that bats get predated. Just because you're a bat and you're eating, I like bats. They can eat 1,000 mosquitoes an hour kind of thing if you're a myotist.
Sounds good to me. Eat up.
They themselves are predated. So there are bats that eat other bats that in the New World especially. And there are birds of prey that eat bats. So there is a bat falcon in the New World. There's a bat hawk in the Old World, but also just regular everyday old great horned owls. Hoot, hoot, hoot. Great horned owl can take a bat. So if we light up the bat's foraging area with a street light or any other, or an art project or any other foolishness, that bat is vulnerable the same way you would be if you had a spotlight on a deer and the coyotes could take it down more easily. So just because it's a bat does not mean it has a carefree life of just eating moths and sort of having little bat thoughts and hanging out with the other happy bats. It's got to evade predation.
That's really interesting. I never realized that. It makes sense. I just never thought about, I guess, that great horns eat bats. We have a great horn right over here, and we got bats, and we got street lights. Okay.
Well, you could check pellets. All great horned owls, they cannot poop out the bones and some of the harsher fur, so they cough it up as a little hairball. So if you look under the roost of any great horned owl tree, you can get with what's called the pellet, the little gray lozenge, and you can pick it apart and see if they've been eating scorpions or cats or rats or possums or whatever, just by looking at the bones and the detritus that's in the pellets are, frankly, they're sanitary. You can just use your bare fingers, but I'll tell your listeners, use rubber gloves and put it in a little dish and use a little sterile rod and wash your hands after. Don't sue us because you got sick. But really, the pellets are fine, and it's a great thing to show kids. Yeah. This is what the owls have been eating last night.
Another one here, biological conservation. Researchers asked whether part night lighting can reduce light pollution impacts. Specifically, they took aim at the practice of switching off streetlights during low activity hours. Does this provide any benefit to the Reunion Island free-tailed bat? Researchers used a natural experiment on Reunion Island in the Indian Ocean, where an annual conservation campaign moved existing switch-off times approximately 2 hours earlier, roughly from 11 p.m. to 9 p.m. They looked at 60 sites split evenly as lit and unlit over 13 nights. The results indicate that light played a significant role in luring bats to fixtures for foraging on collected insects. Bat activity at lit sites in the early night was 62% higher than unlit sites and 73% higher in areas lit in the early morning compared to unlit sites. Light intensity at individual street lamps were not measured there.
It is true. A street lamp can attract a bat in a helpful way, depending on what that bat is doing and how echolocation is being compromised by nearby noise pollution. If you have a lot of moths around a street light, that can be a good thing if you're a bat because it's concentrating the things that you want to eat. But I think all of us would agree, you want to be careful with messing with the flow of things. And okay, they're eating these bats are eating these moths, but then not these other moths over here that are off in the darkness or something. I just think bats got pretty good at catching moths, and they really don't need our streetlights to help them out. Let them be themselves.
That's pretty strange statistics you just said there, Bill, because in Denmark, there was just some news last month about that they were switching part of their streetlights to red streetlights, specifically to help bats. If I understood you correctly, that the bats were able to forage and get more food under the streetlights, although I'm not sure you said what kind of streetlights. But it seems like you don't want to be adding light pollution because it will adversely impact the bats.
Well, I think, Charles, you made a good point. I mean, it's that you just don't mess with the environment. There are certain species which are light adverse and certain bat species which actually are attracted to light. And I just know this from the research I know. And so, some of them will take advantage of, like you said, Charles, that hunting, where it's like, oh, hey, there's a bunch of insects. Done. My meal is set out for me. But then there are others, like you probably pointed out, because of predation, they're going to avoid the light. So, that's the whole point. Regardless of what we do, it's going to have an effect. Is that effect going to be big? Is it going to have downstream consequences? Well, we'll find out. And Mark, the Denmark installations were for a specific bat species in the area that they have found through some research that it's a very narrow band red light that they're using is the least effective to the bats' vision as well as the natural environment for them. So that's why they did that.
It brings up this good point that you've raised. So the natural system is the way we've evolved So as soon as we try to alter the natural system, there's all these impacts all that ripple through everything. So if electric light didn't exist over 150 years ago, and now we're using it, just willy-nilly, we're impacting something that hasn't been around for 4 billion years. And so everything, every cell in our body that's evolved, our vision for humans and all of our senses, all the senses, the way the moths work, everything, if termite, I don't know, the termite thing was so interesting. But so if everything is evolved with a certain natural system, and then you come in and rapidly change that natural system, it seems like it's going to be a catastrophic disaster, because maybe one species, maybe humans are accelerating, but maybe AI is going to accelerate. AI doesn't need light, right? They could just, so
I don't know. Data centers apparently need a lot of light. So I think AI needs some light. When I see some of these data centers are being built and there's no one in them, just servers, and they're lit up like, Vegas.
Yeah, that is so weird, isn't it, Bill? Why do they have all these lights? So, you mentioned predation and being able to see. So, I don't know, this sort of segues into crime, but if you have light, then people can see, right, to commit their crimes. So it makes no sense to me to light up the data centers with light pollution.
When I lead night hikes as part of my outreach, I remind people that our ancestors were very good at walking around at night. Otherwise, you wouldn't be here. Everybody had to come home late from the field, and they managed it just fine.
Yep, prima facie logic. I love it. Can't beat that. That's a good one, Charles. I have one more article I want to touch on before we close out today's show. So before we get there, I want to give you guys a chance to plug yourselves. Mark, where can people learn more about Soft Lights Foundation? How can they reach you?
Oh, yeah. So our website is softlights.org. And so you can land there, and then there's a page where you can contact me through our form. And we have a link there that people can submit an LED incident report. If they've been impacted by LEDs, we will submit that to the Food and Drug Administration.
Okay, great. And Ken, Nightlight Consulting. If I want to learn more about this, how do I connect with you? Where do I?
Well, you can go to nightlightconsulting.com and check out what I offer and what I can do to help protect the night. And as well as I always want to promote, Dark Sky International, obviously, is an organization I'm closely involved in. And, I think if you want to get answers to a lot of the questions that you bring up in your podcast, I think that's a great resource for it as well.
Charles, where can folks find all the work that you're doing? I know you have some interesting new essays coming out, including a history of panorama photography in the American West. That sounds pretty great. And then a book about Lewis and Clark, but set in space. So what's going on, man? Where can people learn all about the stuff you're doing?
I'm in a lovely position that I can do whatever the heck I want. No one can stop me. I'm long past tenure, long past being a university employee. So I just do whatever interests me. And yeah, I'm working on Lewis and Clark in outer space, because I do think when we go to outer space, we're going to bring all of our 19th century bad habits with us, or at least we have been doing so far. I do have a website, charleshoodbooks.com, all one word, and it's not always kept up to date. My editors have opinions about this, but what can I say? I write books, I don't write social media. But if you email me there, I'll answer, or you can also reach me through my main publisher, Heyday Books in Berkeley, and their office staff will forward any inquiries anybody has. And they are my primary publisher right now, along with Timber Books in Portland, Oregon. Thank you for asking.
Okay. Well, before we close out today, just one last piece here. I wanted to include this. This is an interesting piece. What if I told you that the headlights are too dang bright? They're too damn bright. And what if I told you we need the government to do something about them? And what if I told you that Britain's government has received complaints upon complaints regarding headlights? And what if I told you this was the first third of the 20th century? The same issue. Back then, headlights were 21 candle power, roughly 13 times dimmer than today. The glare put off by the lights spurred a cottage industry of shielding, reflectors, and shutters. In 1933, France's government even mandated that the color of headlights be yellow. By 1937, the UK passed its first anti-glare automotive requirement, taking 30 years of complaining to get regulatory action. How about that?
Gee, it sounds like a question for Mark.
That's just an absolutely fascinating little tidbit there, to think that we went through this already 100 years ago, and now we're doing it again. Wow.
Yeah.
Because the years ago we're used to walking around at night
Yes.
by moonlight and starlight, and so the headlights were an intrusion into their world because they didn't need it. They knew they didn't need it. Our overlit world is the problem now. We think we need as much light as we can have, and that's not true.
Yeah, that's the perfect example of that generational inheritance. When we were born, it was like, oh, it was this bright at night, and it's kind of the expectation. And now, the generation born today has a whole different expectation. And the thing is, if we don't keep up with it, what's going to happen?
Well, that does it for this first June show. I want to thank my listeners for staying with us today. Also want to thank my great slate of guests, Mark Baker, Charles Hood, and Ken Walczak. This episode of Light Pollution News was recorded on May 30th, 2026. Audio editing and production done by Caden Ballman. Social media by Laura Taylor and Emily Byers. And I'm your host, Bill McGinney, reminding you to only shine the light where it's needed.